have a little check mark in the bottom right hand corner. That means there's a pull down menu. So if you click on this and hold your mouse on it, you're able to do different selections. So this first one is, if I click in any window here and drag, you'll notice it does a square. If I hold the button and do the circle, it does a circle. If I hold the button again and go further, I can then click and actually draw pretty designs and select like that. And to cycle through these, this one actually does like organic shapes. Makes selecting organic shapes and polygons much easier. To cycle through these is actually push Q repeatedly. And you can see it's blinking. Now this one's a new one. It's called the spray tool. It's one of those instances when I'm doing a demo later on in the weeks to come, I'll show you some demos of actually how that works. But for the most part, you're fine just using the square selection, since that's what we're used to working with in either After Effects, Premiere, Maya, things like that. Now the next one, rectangular selection, or excuse me, window and crossing, is something I don't ever want anybody in my classes to mess with. And I'll show you why. I'm going to model a teapot here real quick. Coolest teapot ever. And I want to show you that if I select the object, all I need to do is click on it, and it's selected. Well, if you do this, and this button is depressed up here, and I go to click on it, it will work. But if I did, let's say this, click and drag, it's not going to select it. This button can be a pain in the butt because you have to actually click and drag over the entire object to actually select it. So without telling you the hotkey, because I don't even want you to use it at all, don't even mess with it. Okay? Now the next tool here is select and move. I don't ever want to see anybody pushing this button ever again, because you will be pushing, make a little donut here. The select and move button is W on your keyboard. Okay? These are the W, E, and R keys that we're going to be going over. The where keys. Okay? Q used to be involved with that, but a lot of people complained because QWER is not a very PC way of saying something. Okay, so they're the W, E, and R keys. W is the move tool, lets you move objects in 3D space on an XYZ axis. The next button, select and rotate, is actually E, where you're able to select an object and rotate it in XYZ axis. The third object is scale, where you can actually scale things up and down, change the size, back and forth, that way. Okay? Now scale tends to get a lot of students into trouble because there's actually 3 different selections of scale. As with the rectangular selection region, where you'll notice there was that little cube in the corner, there's also one with the scale. And if you notice, there's actually 3 different parts of scaling here. The first one here, which is called uniform scale, the second one is called non-uniform scale, but the third one is actually the most dangerous. And I mean dangerous because if you did accidentally use this one, the select and squash, there's a problem with 3D Max. It could crash and it could totally mess up your thing you're working on forever. Okay, so I need to warn you about that straight away. In fact, Autodesk was even aware of it, so they gave the icon a little devil tail. That's what we call it. Because this version of Select, if you do not know how to use it and when to use it, it could mess up your stuff. Now to cycle through those, just like you cycled through the actual transform and select tools, is by hitting R repeatedly. And you'll notice they do change accordingly. Alright, so with that, we're going to go ahead and continue. I'm just going over here, selecting the coordinate system. I don't want anybody to deal with this right now, but what it does is it lets you select the viewport, the arrows here. Alright, so back to making the video here. When it does come through here, let's say you wanted to move this thing in relation to the screen. You'll notice that the arrows moved, so I'm moving it now in relation to the screen. Or let's say in the world tangent. Now it's moving on the world tangent, because you'll notice the XYZ little handles here now match what's down here in the corner. Okay, it's not something you're going to have to use a lot in this class. Okay, but I just want you to be aware of it. Parent, keep an eye on those little arrows right there. Watch what they do when I put it to local. Okay, they didn't change because it's not actually. We have gimbal, working, grid, we have all that stuff, but for the most part you're going to keep it on view. there may be some instances where as an individual you may want to do something and you go, hey, could you help me out with this? I'll say, okay, change that to local, and you can move something on an axis that is in relation to the actual geometry's space. Okay, so with that, this video right at this point will be concluded. To continue on to another video, I'd like to keep these videos down to where they're contained to about 10 minutes or so, so I'll go ahead and stop this one now.